So welcome to the fourth part of this series on couples counselling or relationship therapy. We're going to wrap it up this time, not because there isn't plenty more to say. We could talk about this endlessly. It's a big field, it's a huge field. There is much to discuss, there's much to discover. And it takes an enormous amount of courage to go see a therapist or a counsellor about relationships issues. You could argue, and it's true, that inner work and therapy, counselling and so forth takes courage in any case. But there's a particular kind of openness come nakedness about bringing honestly and fully your relational issues into the therapy arena, which I have a particular respect for. The fourth major point I'd like to make about relationships is I look at them in terms of three waves or stages or periods. And you might want to consider this idea. The first stage is projection. It's also regression to some degree. And it's also, in a pure sense, non-relationship. What I mean by these things is we get together with the other who embodies always those qualities of ourselves which we cannot own. Do not and cannot at that time own. And that's why there is an unconscious distribution of qualities, even in that first meeting, even in the first seconds or minutes of that first meeting with someone who you're destined to spend at least a portion of your life with, a significant time. The exchange of psychic objects, of inner objects, is profound, and it sets the tone for the unfolding relationship. To progress through the first stage of relationship and into the second, then, you have to be prepared to do the kind of inner work in whatever way you do it that means that you re-own the qualities and the aspects of yourself which the other is holding for you. Now, the way in which you experience that is just in exactly what you see, particularly when you're reactive in some way. That's why when you're angry, when you get pissed off, the same as when you're loving, negative passion, positive passion, but these extremes are the points you should concentrate on. They're the points you should look at very, very carefully. I'd go so far as to say an important exercise would be, what is it in the other that I don't see in myself? And let that be the cutting edge of your re-owning your projection. Now, as I've said before, much more to say about that stage, and it is, practically speaking, what relationship therapists and couples counsellors are involved in the entire time. So it's thick with stuff. Second stage of relationship is the deepening that happens when you give up the projecting and the reactive emotions. When and if you attain this second stage of relationship, then there's a closeness, there's an acceptance, there's a knowing of each other, and there is an opening to mystery in each other. You will never know the other person after all, and they will never know you. It doesn't become an issue anymore. You let that one go. You can be with each other in the moment only when you're centered in the heart and you've given up or released reactive emotion, projection and transference of all kinds. And at that point there's a companionship, shall we say, companionship in the heart, and it's qualitatively different than the first stage as you deepen in your humanness, mentally, physically, emotionally, energetically and spiritually together. Through this stage and into the third stage, as I'll describe it to you, is the period of spiritual companionship, and it tends to be a chronological inevitability. As you further in years through life, as you age, the immaterial becomes more important than the material. If you find yourself at 50 or 60 concerned, or perhaps we should say over concerned, about money, anxious perhaps about rising in the corporation or having more businesses or more cars and a bigger bank balance or what have you, anything in relationship to the material world, in other words, then consider what it is you're forfeiting, what are you giving up, what are you not paying attention to. And that turns out to be, for want of a better word, the spiritual life. Turns out to be the invisible realms. It turns out to be that which will be the greatest treasure to you, let's say in the last day you have in this individual lifetime. What will the money mean? What will the material objects mean? What will the status mean at that point? Inner treasures, though, will be precious. It's in this orientation that the third stage of relationship evolves or takes place. Third stage then is spiritual companionship through life, usually in later years, towards facing the transition of death.